Obrigada pela presença de todos. Ontem a gente abriu oficialmente o 19º Festival de Arte Contemporânea Sesc Vídeo Brasil, e hoje a gente inicia as nossas atividades de programas públicos, com a primeira mesa do Seminário Lugares e Sentidos na Arte, debates a partir do Sul. Os programas públicos eles acontecem ao longo dos 2 meses de festival, e nos 3 espaços do festival, então aqui no Sesc Pompeia, no Galpão do Vídeo Brasil, que abre quinta-feira à noite, e no Paço das Artes, que é a casa que abriga a nossa exposição paralela, que abre na sexta-feira. Os programas públicos eles estão divididos em 3 sessões. Esse seminário, cuja curadoria é da Sabrina Moura, que é o nosso espaço de discussão mais teórico, ela vai falar um pouco do seminário na hora de abrir a mesa. Os encontros e conversas são a nossa plataforma mais informal de contato com os nosso corpo de convidados tão potente dessa 19ª edição do festival. Então, não só os artistas, mas também curadores, jornalistas, os parceiros de residência, e as oficinas, onde os artistas conseguem compartilhar um pouco de suas práticas com o público. Então, a programação completa vocês conseguem encontrar nesse guia de programação impresso, tem a versão em inglês e a versão em português, ou no site do festival. E eu também queria dizer que todas as atividades estão sendo registradas em vídeo, e mais tarde vocês podem acessá-las no site do festival, dentro do canal VB. Antes de passar a palavra para a Sabrina, eu só queria comunicá-los de um imprevisto que a gente teve hoje de manhã. Um dos nossos artistas, o artista convidado, Rodrigo Mateus, que faria uma fala sobre o trabalho dele no contexto da exposição aqui no Galpão do Sesc, teve um imprevisto pessoal, não é nada grave, mas isso impossibilita essa visita. Então, essa visita da 1h45 com o Rodrigo Mateus foi cancelada. Então, hoje a gente tem essa mesa do seminário e, às 18 horas, abrimos os nossos programas de filme. Aqui no Teatro do Sesc Pompeia também estão super convidados. Vou passar a palavra para a Sabrina.
Bom dia a todos. Antes de começar a fazer a minha pequena introdução, eu só queria resolver um probleminha de tradução que a gente está tendo. Je voulais juste me certifier si vous entendez la traduction. Est-ce que ça marche? Ça marche la traduction? Non? Ok for you? Ok. Será que a gente poderia ter a ajuda de alguém para traduzir para o francês, para o Abdoulaye, que não está tendo, porque a gente só tem uma tradutora que está falando em inglês e não tem ninguém traduzindo para o Abdoulaye em francês? Obrigada, Maria. Enfim, a gente vai resolvendo isso ao longo da mesa. Mas, voltando aqui ao conteúdo e as questões do... Problema resolvido. Bom, então... Voltando aqui ao nosso objetivo. Bom, bem-vindos ao seminário. Esse é o primeiro encontro, então, de uma série de 4. O segundo encontro acontece no dia 10, o terceiro encontro é no dia 22 e o último no dia 29. E a ideia desse conjunto de debates, por mais amplo e abstrato que ele possa parecer, como vocês viram, são... pensar tradições, memória, história, são questões muito amplas e que dão margem a muitos paradoxos e muita especulação. Eu acho que a ideia foi justamente partir desse campo que é amplo, para a gente poder encontrar nessas conversas eixos transversais, né, para as nossas discussões e questões que atravessam não só aquilo que a gente vai discutir aqui hoje, como os trabalhos que estão nas exposições. E eu acho que as exposições desse ano elas representam muito bem a diversidade de questões e a dificuldade de se conter essa produção contemporânea em certos eixos pré-definidos ou pré-estabelecidos, né? Então, mais uma vez, isso justifica o nome desse seminário, né, que é Lugares e Sentidos da Arte, debates a partir do Sul, e não debates do Sul, né? E, ao se afastar dessa ideia de debates do Sul, o que a gente quis foi justamente se afastar da ideia de que existem identidades ou territórios com identidades essencializadas ou pré-definidas, né, como é o exemplo das discussões que se centram e focam em arte africana, arte latino-americana, né? Então, como é que a gente pode se afastar um pouco dessas categorias? E aí, eu queria começar essa discussão de hoje citando uma fala muito interessante que eu vi de um curador camaronês chamado Simone Gianni, que ele fala de uma visita que ele fez ao estúdio de um artista, e junto com um crítico de arte, um artista que era africano, ele não cita o nome, e que esse crítico, ao observar a produção desse artista, fala: bom, é muito interessante, mas eu não vejo nada de contemporâneo nessa produção. Eu não vejo nada de contemporâneo vindo da África hoje. E aí ele contando cita esse episódio como algo que lhe deixa muito perplexo e que me fez pensar justamente nessa questão, né? Quem define o que é contemporâneo, né? E a partir da onde se constrói esse projeto contemporâneo, pensando que a gente pode até fazer uma analogia com a modernidade também, né? Se a modernidade se projetava no futuro e utilizava noções como a questão do universal para se justificar, o contemporâneo, será que às vezes ele também não usa essa retórica do global para se projetar como um projeto inclusivo e amplo, quando, na verdade, ele é definido, muitas vezes, por um discurso central? Então, acho que essa é uma questão que eu queria colocar, né? Será que existem pessoas, projetos ou ideias que são mais contemporâneas ou mais globais que outras? E como que o trabalho desses artistas e das pessoas que estão aqui nessa mesa hoje podem ajudar a gente a ampliar essa questão? Então, antes de passar a palavra para a Júlia Rebouças, que é uma das curadoras do 19º Festival, eu queria fazer uma breve apresentação dos outros participantes. Então, nós temos Abdoulaye Konaté, que é artista convidado dessa edição do festival, e que, além de artista, ele é diretor do Conservatoire des Arts et Métiers, em Bamako. Então, ele tem um projeto importante também de formação no Mali. A Negone Fall, que é crítica e curadora, e que é parte do júri do 19º Festival. E o Roy Dib, que é artista e crítico de arte libanês, e que apresenta na exposição Panoramas do Sul. Então, é isso. Passo a palavra para a Júlia, e bom debate para todos nós.
Bom dia a todos, todas. É um prazer estar aqui mais uma vez, nessa sequência de muitos eventos e de importantes encontros, né? Eu acho que essa é, sobretudo, uma plataforma de encontros. Acho que esse momento aqui é um momento, enfim, mais do que proferir, palestrar, é um momento da gente conversar, levantar questões e conversar. Obrigada também pela presença nesse dia pós-abertura, né? Eu sei que estão todos ainda com a intensidade da noite anterior. E eu queria, acho que o meu papel aqui é tentar contar um pouco sobre a experiência de constituir e construir, de construção desse festival, dessa 19ª edição, e como nós articulamos, enfim, a partir desse comitê curatorial, 3 frentes de projetos, né, 3 exposições, e eu queria contar um pouco para vocês das nossas discussões no fazer, né, no processo de feitura dessas 3 exposições, e de questões que nós acabamos, enfim, que levantamos, discutimos e sobre as quais não temos, obviamente, respostas, e acho que as obras de arte acirram essas especulações que nós fizemos do ponto de vista ainda, enfim, num contexto de reunião curatorial. Então, acho que o festival contempla uma exposição de acervo, com curadoria do Diego Matos, contempla uma série de programas públicos, mas a pauta, né, a agenda sobre a qual nós nos debruçamos era uma agenda de 3 exposições, a saber, a primeira é essa exposição de artistas selecionados, uma exposição de artistas convidados, que está aqui no galpão, e uma exposição de projetos comissionados. eu acho que essa exposição que está na convivência aqui do Sesc Pompeia, a exposição dos artistas selecionados, ela, enfim, ela articula um coração muito importante, ela articula um corpo muito forte do festival. A gente partiu na nossa seleção de quase 3 mil obras inscritas, né? Então ela funciona a partir de um edital aberto, de uma inscrição online. Esse dado da inscrição online ele parece talvez irrelevante, mas acho que ele é bastante significativo na dinâmica de estabelecer contato com essas regiões desse sul. Num dado momento, entendemos que, às vezes, até imprimir um portfólio, colocar no envelope, ir até um correio, fazer um envio internacional era muito mais complicado do que, muito mais difícil e custoso do que, enfim, fazer uma inscrição online. Então, recebemos quase 3 mil propostas e não partimos de nenhuma ideia pré-concebida, assim, não partimos de nenhuma de nenhum eixo curatorial ou de nenhum desejo conceitual, teórico, para olhar essa produção. De fato, tentamos fazer um exercício de escuta muito aguçado, é um exercício difícil, se a gente considera que foi um trabalho de 18 meses, 3 mil projetos, mas tentamos partir dessa observação cuidadosa, dessa escuta dos projetos, para, então, identificando, no decorrer do processo, quais eram as questões que animavam as discussões desse sul. E acho que, para nós, conforme o desenvolvimento dos projetos foi se dando, duas palavras desse extenso vocabulário foram ficando mais evidentes para nós como palavras que precisavam ser problematizadas, a começar pelo título do festival, Panorama e Sul. Então, primeiro era essa pergunta, se a cada 2 anos nós conseguimos especular sobre um novo panorama, ou o que se apresenta a cada 2 anos para nós a partir dessa seleção. E a outra palavra, obviamente, é a palavra Sul. A Sabrina colocou muito bem, assim, o Sul para nós, esse lugar de onde partimos, né, ou para onde olhamos, mas não é exatamente uma condição que qualifica essa produção necessariamente. Bom, discutimos muito e para nós pareceu muito importante observar a lista de países que compõem esse sul global, esse sul geopolítico, por uma questão de edital, uma questão institucional, de alguma forma burocrática. É preciso, no edital, ter uma lista de países que constituem esse sul. E, internamente, discutimos muito quem eram esses países e qual era, enfim, que critérios e quão flutuantes são esses critérios. Então, acho que algumas outras falas públicas já comentamos o caso de Portugal, por exemplo, que nos pareceu um país que, muito, se pensarmos do ponto de vista econômico, financeiro, e, enfim, numa grande crise que emerge e que recontextualiza um pouco as condições e as relações econômicas e financeiras entre as nações, Portugal nos pareceu um exemplo interessante e frágil de ser problematizado como, enfim, um país que mais da metade da sua população está fora, né, emigrou, e que tem uma condição econômica muito frágil, mas que, ainda assim, é o colonizador, nosso colonizador. Então, tem uma história colonial e tem uma história do Brasil de ex-colônia que não se apaga diante de um novo contexto que acontece muito por meio de trânsitos de capital e menos de novas ideias ou de ideias que, enfim, que desmontem toda uma história que foi construída a partir de narrativas hegemônicas e que foi construída de Portugal para o país. Assim, fizemos, por exemplo, uma pequena pesquisa. Durante o processo, fomos ler sobre a história de algumas cidades brasileiras. A história de todas as cidades brasileiras começa com a chegada do colonizador, sempre. Não há nenhuma fonte oficial, nenhum livro oficial que contemple, enfim, a não ser as teses acadêmicas, as pesquisas que já vão no bojo desse desejo de reescrever essas histórias. Mas as histórias oficiais sempre começam na chegada do colonizador. Estávamos lendo a história do Mato Grosso, começa com a chegada dos bandeirantes, enfim. Então, ainda assim, ainda entendendo que esse é um território que muda muito, que se altera muito, se altera, sobretudo, por um fluxo financeiro, ainda há, obviamente, uma história de submissão, e essa submissão ela se faz presente ainda nos nossos corpos e na maneira como as nossas relações culturais e sociais se colocam. Fomos entendendo, então, que talvez esse Sul fosse um território imaginado, assim, e muitos trabalhos nos falaram sobre isso, assim, sobre esse Sul como um lugar que vai sendo fabulado, assim, e como essas histórias que vão sendo reescritas, elas têm muito de uma subjetividade, de uma experiência do afeto de cada um, mas como também nesse afeto há uma ficção que funda um pouco, que forja uma outra narrativa, um outro arcabouço de ideias sobre esses lugares. Obviamente, enfim, já falei um pouco sobre isso. Acho que há muitos trabalhos que apontam para essa necessidade de uma resistência histórica, né, de fazer circular contra narrativas. Mas, obviamente, é um campo muito heterogêneo, e acho que essa é um pouco a força dessa exposição dos artistas selecionados que está aqui no Galpão da Convivência. Talvez um outro grande corpo de trabalhos vai falar de uma ideia de crise, de uma certa urgência ao enfrentar algumas questões políticas, questões sociais que se apresentam muitas vezes, que têm lugar muitas vezes no corpo. Acho que um outro aspecto que nos pareceu muito interessante é perceber que, se há essa recorrência do corpo em muitas obras, há também um outro grupo de trabalhos que vai falar de um ambiente absolutamente pós-utópico. Assim, a cidade, ela não é necessariamente a cidade como paisagem, ela nem é mais necessariamente o território onde tudo acontece. Assim. O ambiente, eu acho que há obras muito interessantes falando sobre um lugar de ruína, um lugar de destruição, um lugar muito desolado. E a natureza, eu acho interessante como ela aparece aí, o ambiente, a paisagem natural, ela aparece quase como um elemento dessa pós-utopia, assim. Então, eu acho que, de uma forma muito interessante, um resgate, ou não um resgate à natureza, mas é como se recorresse à natureza para falar de um ambiente desolado, um ambiente destruído, um ambiente absolutamente enfraquecido, a cidade um pouco, e a paisagem como esse lugar de um enfraquecimento de relações, sobretudo. Bom, obviamente, eu acho a mesa fala de um gesto nessa contemporaneidade. Eu acho que essa é uma provocação muito interessante de pensar no gesto dentro desse contexto, dentro desse território tão heterogêneo, porque eu acho que esse gesto ele surge com muitas outras feições para além desse savoir-faire, assim, para além desse saber fazer e desse contato e do enfrentamento com a matéria, assim. Então, esse é um enfrentamento importante, mas ele é também, de alguma forma, incorporado em outras práticas, e acho que, não sei, nos parece que o vídeo e a imagem, a produção de imagem, tem sido um recurso importante para esse Sul global, geopolítico, enfim, como a gente, com qual palavra a gente se sentir mais confortável de problematizar. Um segundo corpo, um segundo momento desse projeto são as 4 obras que foram comissionadas, e aqui eu acho que elas não foram... acho que talvez a palavra comissionada não seja tão apropriada, uma vez que a instituição não solicitou e não discutiu conceitualmente com esses artistas cada obra, no sentido de ter convidado para desenvolver um projeto. Assim, os projetos nos chegaram, os artistas inscreveram projetos, e, junto com a instituição, com um grupo de curadores, nós desenvolvemos esses projetos com 4 artistas. Acho que são 4 projetos emblemáticos para uma série de questões que certamente nós vamos discutir aqui. O projeto da Kelly Safia Maksud, uma artista do Quênia, baseada no Canadá. Ela vai pensar e problematizar muito essas tradições atribuídas ou tradições forjadas a alguns contextos, e ela usa no trabalho dela 2 elementos que são recorrentes da pesquisa dela, não só artística, mas acadêmica também, que é o tecido e o sabão. Então, ela vai falar como o sabão ela recorre a todo um grupo de publicidades e discursos que foram produzidos, sobretudo numa época vitoriana, que associam o sabão, enfim, a esses processos de higiene, de higienização de uma cultura, né, higienização de uma tradição, mas também, obviamente, tem uma relação muito forte com o próprio corpo. Então, na pesquisa dela, ela compartilhou com a gente alguns daqueles anúncios em que um garoto negro passa o sabão e, conforme passa, ele vai ficando branco, assim. E esse embranquecimento se conecta, enfim, de uma maneira muito direta com, ainda hoje, estratégias e discursos de embranquecimento. Esse elemento do embranquecimento está presente no trabalho dela na forma de um alvejante que vai gotejando sobre uma trouxa. Essa trouxa, por sua vez, feita por tecidos, que são tecidos quase como símbolos, elementos de africanidade, né? São tecidos que também, por sua vez, engendram todo um mercado e um comércio. Assim, são tecidos que foram produzidos na Europa, vendidos para a África. Eles estabelecem uma relação comercial muito direta, né? Dutch Walks, eles são, enfim, aquela padronagem que nós atribuímos às culturas africanas de uma maneira distante e quase naif. Então, ela faz uma trouxa com esses tecidos e submete essa trouxa a esse embranquecimento que, obviamente, não se dá de maneira total e completa. Evidentemente, o tecido resiste ao embranquecimento total. Um outro trabalho que está no galpão, que eu acho que é importante, traz muitas questões, é o trabalho do Cristiano Lenhart, um artista do Rio Grande do Sul, brasileiro, baseado no Recife, que chama-se Superquadra Saci, e que vai fazer na sua obra ele sempre mistura seres, ele cria uma miríade de seres imaginários. E aqui esses seres imaginários, eles são como eles condensam vários personagens do folclore e da cultura tradicional brasileira num só ser, que atua num híbrido de gênero e que atua com um sujeito que está num ambiente modernista brasileiro, ou que se relaciona com o ambiente modernista brasileiro. Então, é como se fosse um condensado de figuras tradicionais brasileiras que se apresentam numa cidade, a Superquadra, né, uma referência direta ao urbanismo de Brasília. O trabalho da Tin Tin Chen, de Taiwan, ele quase é uma linda metáfora sobre esse lugar que é o sul geopolítico. Ela faz uma reunião de livros, publicações ficcionais ou não ficcionais, mas que tem em seu título ou como seu tema lugares que não existem, ou lugares inventados, ou ficções de lugares. E essa biblioteca está lá, disponível para ser acessada, ela constrói, ela organiza esses títulos num mapa, e eu acho que ela, enfim, amarra de uma maneira muito interessante até questões que foram colocadas pela Kelly, pelo Cristiano Lenhart e também pelo Carlos Monroy, o quarto artista com um projeto comissionado, que vai fazer uma discussão sobre a lambada, um gênero desenvolvido, enfim, que surge na Bolívia nos anos 80 e é apropriado pela indústria fonográfica brasileira, vira um fenômeno comercial nos anos 80 no Brasil. E ele vai falar desses trânsitos, então, de tradições, de gêneros, e de gêneros musicais aqui, mas, enfim, de manifestações culturais. E eu acho que também, assim como o trabalho da Kelly consegue repercutir de uma maneira muito contundente no presente, o trabalho do Monroy também, sobretudo, se a gente considerar que São Paulo hoje recebe um fluxo de imigrantes muito intenso e que há uma comunidade boliviana sendo constituída de uma maneira muito forte e mas com traços ainda muito perversos de péssimas qualidades de vida, de trabalho quase escravo, de uma situação de marginalidade na forma como essa comunidade está presente em São Paulo hoje. Então, acho que pensar nessa expoliação cultural que acontece por meio da lambada como um gênero apropriado e transformado num grande produto da indústria fonográfica brasileira é um modo interessante de pensar também na forma como essa comunidade chega hoje, mais uma vez, ao Brasil, e em todas as estratégias de expoliação que acontecem nessas relações. Um terceiro eixo, então, bom, esses 4 projetos estão dispostos no galpão do Vídeo Brasil, na Vila Leopoldina, esse novo espaço que está sendo inaugurado no dia 8, amanhã à noite. E um outro grupo de trabalhos, eu já vou encerrando a minha fala, tem a ver são artistas convidados. O senhor Abdoulaye Konaté, aqui ao meu lado, talvez não, o eixo para nós dessa pesquisa, da pesquisa de artistas convidados. Nós partimos da produção dele e de uma observação da produção dele para traçar algumas ideias e pensar em quais artistas poderiam se relacionar com com os temas e com a contundência dos trabalhos que ele nos coloca. Então, bom, ele vai falar sobre a produção dele, eu vou talvez falar um pouco mais sobre os outros artistas. A Sônia Gomes é uma artista brasileira de Caetanópolis, uma cidade de Minas Gerais. Ela também trabalha com o tecido, ela também está pensando em questões de forma, também tem um gesto ali muito presente. O trabalho que está ali é constituído por várias obras diferentes produzidas ao longo de 10 anos, que ela instala juntas, não é uma só enfim, não é uma obra instalativa, mas, enfim, são quase 20, são 19 peças que ela articula juntas, que falam de um gesto que ela repete de costurar, torcer, preencher, e ela vai fazendo aquilo como um mesmo movimento ao longo de muitos anos, e com isso acho que ela está também falando acho que tem uma força de um corpo, de um sujeito que se coloca ali naquele emaranhado, naqueles órgãos, naqueles corpos. Quando a gente estava montando, ela falou uma frase, ela articulou aquilo de um jeito muito interessante. Ela falou: parece que são vários imigrantes que estavam dispersos ao redor do mundo e que aqui se reúnem num encontro, cada um com sua individualidade, cada um com com as marcas desse novo lugar que vive, mas que aqui retornam ao seu país natal e se congregam. Assim, é assim que ela trata cada uma daquelas 19 peças que estão ali articuladas numa só instalação. O trabalho da Ito Barrada é o trabalho que está na frente, né, o painel, o papel de parede que abre a exposição. Ela é uma artista francesa de origem marroquina, ela trata muito da região do Tanger e trata muito desses lugares inventados um pouco. Aquela paisagem é uma paisagem... Ela mostra como em diversos lugares públicos, cafés, restaurantes, enfim, no Marrocos tem sempre um papel de parede de um outro lugar, assim, de uma outra situação, né, como se houvesse sempre um desejo de escapar para uma ficção, né, para um lugar que é aquele lugar no qual você não está. Então, ela fala muito desses lugares inventados e dessas paisagens forjadas que vão se constituindo e vão alimentando o imaginário. O Rodrigo Mateus, por sua vez, é um artista brasileiro também, que a obra dele é aquela obra central do pavilhão. Ele está falando, ele está se referindo diretamente à história desse lugar aqui, o Sesc Pompeia, e como era uma fábrica de tonéis, enfim, ele coloca ali junto duas instâncias, né, uma instância mais fantasmagórica, especulativa, onírica, com uma instância da circulação do produto, né, os tonéis, que são tonéis recolhidos do uso da vida real e que são incorporados ali naquela instalação. E, por fim, o Gabriel Abrantes, que é um artista nascido nos Estados Unidos, filho de pais africanos, baseado com sede em Portugal. Então, ele se considera um artista português, que apresenta o filme Liberdade. O Gabriel, a produção dele, ele é formado, ele se formou como um pintor, mas ele tem atuado nos últimos anos como realizador de filmes e vídeos. E o trabalho dele está sempre falando dessas situações meio de trânsito e desses... Entre lugares é uma palavra bem clichê, mas, enfim, se aplica, eu acho que nesse momento agora, assim, nessas condições sempre híbridas e misturadas, assim. Então, ele vai falar de imigração, ele vai falar de gênero, ele vai fazer, de uma maneira muito iconoclasta, referências à história da arte. E a gente achou que esse filme ele era um filme enfim, que amarrava uma série de questões que nos interessava discutir. Então, bom, eu queria fazer esse rasante assim, por essas exposições e pelas discussões que animaram as nossas reuniões de curadoria. Eu acho que é um momento, como eu falei, essas são as questões que nós levantamos, mas há muitas outras, e acho que, a partir da fala dos colegas, a gente vai poder conversar um pouco mais sobre alguns desses eixos e dessas perguntas, sobretudo. Obrigada.
O Abdoulaye estava marcado para falar depois da Júlia, mas ele me pediu para pular.
I want my money back. In my culture, we're from the same country, but our countries split 50 years ago, and we added a star in Senegal. But in my culture, you never speak before your elder. And so it was agreed that Abdoulaye was supposed to speak before me. But he turned it around and discovered recently that in a small area in the Sahel, it's the opposite. Young people speak the first, so he's embracing that unknown culture. I'm sure he invented that story. Good morning. So we were discussing with Abdoulaye how to unfold the brief you send us, because it's a huge, challenging question. I don't know how to answer it, so I'm going to show 15 different artists that I put into 4 categories, 3 different categories, just as a starting point for the conversation. And I didn't put any work of Abdoulaye because is on the panel, and I was assuming that he will show his work, and he just told me that he didn't bring his work, so I invite everybody to go and see his work. Yes. So the three fourth categories I will be talking about are culture, history, and geography. Because I'm never comfortable with the word tradition. I'm not sure what it means. How do I define tradition? What is my tradition? As a city person, born in the 20th century, living in the 21st century, how do other people in other parts of the world see me and define my tradition? So instead of tradition, I'm going to talk about culture that is a little bit broader. So Pascal Martin Tailloux, the name doesn't say, but actually he's a male artist, and he decided to change his name from Jean Apollinaire to Pascal and Martine as a homage to his two parents, and also a way to celebrate the hardship of women on the continent, and especially from Cameroon. He was meant to be a lawyer, and he was studying law at the university. I was asked right now to move to French.
A gente tem uma tradutora que vai fazer a tradução do francês para o português. Então, we are having a problem with the translation, and it's going to be very hard for me to discuss your talk while translating.
Oh, you know what we can do?
Yeah, let's sing together.
No, I can, because some people here only speak English.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can speak in English and say it also in French. I can do both.
You think so?
Yes, I think it's better. I'm thinking out loud, so
Okay.
it's more easy for me to say it in English, perhaps say it in French,
Yeah.
then I say it in English and it's translated in Portuguese for everybody.
Okay, perfect. Because
Yes.
you are saying very important things.
So
and
that means I really
want
need
to
my money
address
back,
what
you know
are
that?
saying.
Till we'll have our money back. Yes, and then you can try Arabic as well, and we move. This is interesting, and I'm not a morning person. You owe me more than a drink, huh? Donc, Tailloux, I'm just re-saying what I just told you about Pascal Martin Tailloux. Son nom d'origine, c'est Jean Apollinaire. Et il a changé ce nom en Pascal et Martine en hommage à ses deux parents. Et aussi, le fait de féminiser son nom, c'est aussi de rendre hommage aux femmes en Afrique et au dur labeur des femmes. Et à la base, Pascal était étudiant à la faculté de droit du Cameroun. Et il a décidé de laisser tomber ses études de droit pour vraiment critiquer l'état politique et social du Cameroun à ce moment-là. Et c'est là qu'il a commencé à faire des installations. So Tailloux was studying law at the university, and he was quite pissed off by the social and political situation of Cameroon, and he decided to quit his studies at the university and started buying and collecting objects in flea markets and making installations. He doesn't define himself as an artist. He rather says that he's a commentator who has a critical look on his society and on the world at large. Donc il ne se voit pas comme un artiste, mais plutôt comme un commentateur des faits de société, que ce soit locaux ou internationaux. So Tailloux is well known for his very large installation, and I would say that the common thread in his work is the state of societies. Of course, the starting point is always looking at Cameroon, because that's where he's from, even if he lives in Belgium for the past, I think, almost 15 years. But Cameroon is like the window to look at the world. and the state of the society, the traumas, imposed rules of living together, imposed social codes. Donc prendre le Cameroun comme point de départ pour avoir un regard critique sur le monde et sur les règles sociales et culturelles qui sont imposées à l'ensemble d'un groupe. So, and because Tayu always uses found objects, but also masks that are massively produced in Africa in markets for tourists, and that tourists will buy as a fetish, thinking that this is authentic African art, but actually it's junk. So he uses a lot of those objects that you can find in markets, and he's playing on all these different layers of what is real, what is fake, what is culture, what is not culture, what is your identity, what is not your identity, depending on if you are a tourist, if you're an expat, or if you're an African. Donc, à partir des objets trouvés, il utilise beaucoup tous ces faux masques qu'on trouve dans les marchés. C'est pour lui une façon de jouer sur la notion de c'est quoi ta réelle identité, c'est quoi ta culture, suivant si c'est un touriste qui prend ça, si c'est un expatrié, etc. So it's a kind of hide and seek, but behind it's always a look at the state of the world and questioning dogmas and ideologies, whether it's political, social, religious ideologies. How does it work? The green? Ah. So it's not me that is stupid, huh? Thanks God. It's okay. Ah, now it works. So you're my assistant. I just do this and you move to the next. Elena Tsui from Ghana. Je vais pas, mais tu sais, je travaille là-dessus. So, what I found interesting about Elena Tsui is also reading a text on his work, depending on if it's art critic from West Africa or if it's an art critic, let's say from Europe or from the United States, you will get a different lecture and understanding of the work of these artists. From a West African point of view, the first time we saw these massive installation, it's like 3 to 5 meters long by 3 meters high. Our immediate impulse was the kente cloth. It's a woven textile fabric that is very famous in Ghana, and it's a textile that was designed for the royal court in Kumasi at that time. So that was immediately, even the street seller, the fisherman, will see these big metal bottle cups that are assembled and really looks like a moving fabric, and we will immediately relate to that kingdom of Ashanti. And in other societies, they will see different things. Al-Natsui, when he started as an artist in the 80s and 90s, he was known for his wood installations, criticizing mainly immigration and border control and denial of visa, something that is quite a topic today. But he was addressing that, and he was really known as a wood sculptor in West Africa. And this, what we call his artistic shift at the turn of the millennium, when he started doing these bottle cups. And that's the moment also it was like a click in the mind of our politicians who have absolutely no understanding of contemporary art. They could understand the work of Elena Tsui just visually, because of the reference to the kente cloth that you bring to them. And then it opened all the boxes in their minds. So I think that was also an interesting shift in his work, but also the understanding of our local political leaders in West Africa. Say, okay, so this is what art is about. Le fait que la référence au kente et à tout le travail textile, j'ai vu beaucoup de politiciens, que ce soit au Ghana, à la Biennale de Dakar ou même en Côte d'Ivoire, tout d'un coup comprendre le travail de Elena Tsouli parce que c'était proche de leur propre culture et du coup ça nous a permis d'aller plus loin et d'avoir une conversation sur mais c'est ça l'art contemporain. What is interesting also is because he's using these bottle cups and bottle cans that he cut and assembles, people always refer also to him as an activist for environment issues. It's true that he has a concern with environment. I don't think he's a pure activist, but for sure, him also being a teacher, he had a great impact on generations of students, and a lot of his former students are also doing site-specific installations, outdoor, and they are almost all of them are addressing climate change, environment issues. They will not use bottle cups, but they will use other meanings, but it's true that it's a kind of a common thread between all those artists who have been students of Elena Tsouli. But what he's also addressing by using these recycled material is our informal economies that is really, really strong in West Africa. The new trade routes and how people make different deals and what is the meaning of commerce and what is the value, because these bottle cans are things that we throw away and he uses that to make art. So it's also the question behind is what is the value of art and what value do you give to art in your society? Because you refer to this, you think that this is the kingdom, the Ashanti kingdom. Somewhere else, this will be a masterpiece of contemporary art. But what is the value of contemporary art? What is the value of our culture here in Ghana or here in West Africa? Because some people think that he's Nigerian because he has been living in Nigeria since the 70s, but he's Ghanaian. Blocked again. Yes, I think so. But that's what we do in Dakar, so we don't take any risks. Yes. Okay. Okay. So it's changed all the time. So Rihima Chachaj, she's from Tanzania. She's a young artist. She graduated from the Michaelis School of Fine Arts in Cape Town. This is a video. I didn't think we had the time, so I only have 20 minutes to show also video. So this is an episode of one of her last videos called The Flower. And she's taking the ritual of henna that is very strong of all the African countries that have been impacted by Arab culture. And in Tanzania, because of the proximity to Zanzibar and to the Arabic Peninsula, so also Arab culture is very, very strong in there. And so this ritual of henna for her is also a way to address motherhood, womanhood, because she also works a lot with her own mother, who is a poet, who often writes poems that she sings in her videos. And she sees henna as a way to contest and to protest against the patriarchal system. And also the fact that henna is used in Tanzania, but also in our societies, the Sahel, to embellish the body, especially for a bride to be. And then also questioning the position of women in society and if the women's body is just a trophy for men. Donc c'est toutes les questions liées à la maternité, au symbole du aîné qu'on a hérité de la tradition arabe. Et tu sais que dans les cérémonies de mariage et de fiançailles, le fait de se mettre de l'aîné, c'est aussi une façon de dire, mais est-ce qu'on peut réduire la femme, le corps de la femme, à une marchandise? Et est-ce qu'on peut casser le système patriarcal et la domination des hommes dans la société? So, so in this video, it's the henna is projected. You have the video where she's standing still and singing, and then 15 centimeters, you have a white veil. That is supposed to be also the veil that we wear, because in some of our societies, some women also wear the veil. And then the drawing, this is a very famous henna design that women wear before their wedding. And so this design appears while she sings, and when she stops singing, the flower disappears, and it's kind of the struggle of a woman to overcome this kind of tag, and you have to be beautiful to sing, to be quiet, and can we question the traditional role of a woman in Tanzania? So is this tradition or is this contemporary? I think it's both, but I'm always confused by this idea of the tradition. So for me, it's about culture. Next one. Angèle Etundi Essamba. I don't have to translate in French. She knows Angèle. Very well-known photographer based in Amsterdam, who has been doing for the past almost 30 years series of photographies on black women. As she's not a feminist, she's not an activist, but that's her I would say her obsession. I think each artist has an obsession, and her obsession is about black women. And this series, she was looking at the different attitudes that will define a woman in different societies in Africa, whether it's from the Sahel, where we come from, where we have a very strong culture that is also connected to North Africa and to Arab culture, whether it's from Central Africa, that has different cultural references, or whether it's Southern Africa. So she's been looking at all these different codes and attitudes, and how do you define beauty, depending on different societies, and making these very interesting series of work. Amal Kenawi, an artist from Egypt. This is a video she presented at the Dakar Biennial. It was in 2002, called The Room. And actually, these are film stills where you see a bride who is sewing, who is embroidering pearls on a heart, on a real heart that is beating. And it's about forced marriages, about the fear to leave the house of your family to go to the house of your husband, this transition from being a teenager to becoming a woman. What do you have to say? What is your role? And how do you become a woman? And is the marriage about love, or is it just an arrangement, a deal between two families? And it's a silent video. It's a very, very beautiful. It's one of my favorite videos, because it talks a lot about, again, what is the position of our women in society. We never had really like feminist movements like you did in the West, but women in different parts of Africa have been able to find their place, impose their rights in, let's say, very subtle ways, and sometimes even using sensuality and beauty and their body as a weapon to gain more rights. Donc c'est vraiment à propos du féminisme, du mariage forcé, de cette transition de passer de jeune fille à la femme, et comment est-ce que parfois la femme utilise la beauté et la séduction pour acquérir plus de droits, plutôt que de faire des démonstrations comme en Occident le font les féministes. Safa Hirwas from Morocco. She is also well known for taking I would say deliberately, the traditional technique of embroidering, paper cutting in the south of Morocco, sewing as well, and turning that into very minimalistic conceptual installation. They look always very delicate, almost like floating, airy. And it's really about women labor and all these gestures and routine of women as a worker, but in a confined role of sewing, embroidering, something that always has to do with beauty. But then how do you define beauty? What is hard work? And then what is your contribution to the society if you're a worker, but if your work is only related to beauty? Donc, Safa Erwaski, elle prend la tradition du sud du Maroc, de sa famille, de la broderie, de la culture, du dur labeur en fait des femmes après le travail des champs. Et c'est un peu pour questionner le rôle économique de la femme dans la société marocaine. So I would say these are kind of examples of what culture in a broad sense for artists who are from Africa, some of them living on the continent and some of them living in the West, how they will take culture as a source of inspiration or sometimes as a starting point to talk about their work. Sometimes I will see writings about them say, oh, they use their tradition. Of course, it freaks me out because what does that mean? And African tradition, when you're talking about 54 countries, it's a little bit insane anyway. So, next. History, that's a key issue and will always be a hot topic for many artists on the continent. It's also one of my obsessions as a curator, history, to redefine history, to reclaim history, to look at the history of Africa from an African point of view. Romuald Azoumé, well-known artist from Benin. Benin was one of the few African countries who publicly apologized for being involved in the Atlantic slave trade. Because we often forget that if Europeans sold black people, it's because both black people, it's because they were sellers. You know, when you have the buyer and you have the seller. And in Africa, it's a taboo. We don't really talk about it. And Benin, the kingdom of Abomey, was the first, and to my knowledge, I think it's the only one who publicly said, we are deeply sorry for what we did, and we apologize. So Romuald did, he uses always oil cans in his work. He's known for doing series of masks using oil cans, and this is like the replica of a slave ship, and he covered it with urine and fecal materials, and he's really looking at the slavery, but from the point of view of the kingdom of Abomey, from Benin. Donc là, c'est l'histoire de l'esclavage et le rôle des Africains dans cette traite négrière dont on parle très peu, et où c'est toujours le blanc, le méchant. And so what you see at the bottom here, you have two sculptures, the yellow one and the black one. And the yellow one, it represents the European empire, and the black one, that's the kingdom of Abomey. And to an extent, it's all the African kingdoms that have been involved in the slave trade. And he has been doing, I think in the documenta, not the last one, the one before, he also did another huge boat. That's his kind of obsession for boats and the slave trade and slavery, and seeing that all these black diaspora around the world that he sees as his lost brothers and sisters, and how can he reconnect to them. Amar Bourras from Algeria. Tu te souviens, ça, c'était dans... I don't have to explain, he saw this because it was part of an exhibition and he was in it. From Algeria, and looking at the Algeria and France, the very, very difficult until now relationship, love and hate. Algeria had the most disgusting independence, decolonization war with France, and up till today, France denies that it was a war. So they refer to it as the incidents of Algeria. And in this video, he took archive images of the war of people who have been arrested, tortured, and just basically making it digital, black and white and red. But what is interesting is that there's the voice of a woman who is reading a very, very famous poem in French. So the voice is very subtle, and it's the contrast between this woman's voice, very subtle, and this terrible image, and the violence of what she's saying. And that poem was written in 1961, and basically it's the woe. So she's swearing, I swear on the veil of my mother full of tears. I swear on the body of my sister who has been collectively raped. I swear on the ruins of my village that has been burned down to ashes. So swearing, and at the last sentence he's saying, I swear I have no hate for the French people. It's really it's very simple but very strong, I think, statement about the war, about any civil war, and about also not forgetting, but how to forgive and overcome and go beyond. So when we showed it in Bamako, the Malian government bought it, and I was thinking France should buy it and show it in schools, because the French kids, they don't even learn the history of this colonization and the war and the traumas behind in schools. So the French kids, they have no idea why there are still tensions between France and Algeria. So that's just an example of a burning history that is still not reserved. Oh, this is also a video I really like from Andrew Putter. He's looking, of course, at the South African history, and he made this fake fiction. When you enter the room, you think it's an oil painting, but actually it's a video. Suddenly you see the woman who starts smiling. She's an actress, and she's singing a lullaby song in Xhosa, which is a local language from Eastern Cape. And it's she is dressed as the wife of the colonial administrator in the 16th century in Cape Town, and so the fiction is that she adopted a black Xhosa kid, and so to be able to talk to that kid in his own language, she learned Xhosa. So she's standing still, you think it's an oil painting, and suddenly, a little bit like also a reference to Mona Lisa, so you only see her mouth, and so she's singing that song, and that it ends, she winks, and then it becomes a painting again. And it's really about what is the South African history in relation to apartheid, in relation to class division, race division, and if Afrikaans and British cultures were imposed on other people, can't it be the opposite, that also white people embrace cultures of black South Africans? Kader Acha, another Algerian, who has been taking also the history of, oh, I forgot to translate Andrew Potter for you. C'est bon? Tu veux que je te traduise ou c'est bon? Ah, he won't, I forgot him. Donc c'est une vidéo d'Andrew Potter où en fait, quand tu arrives, tu penses que c'est une huile sur toile. Mais en fait, la femme, elle commence à chanter une chanson en concert, et il a inventé une fiction où c'est la femme du gouverneur de la colonie au XVIe siècle qui a adopté un bébé africain et qui a appris la langue Xhosa pour pouvoir chanter des comptines à son enfant. Et c'est une façon pour Andrew de dire qu'on a imposé la culture afrikaneur et britannique aux Sud-Africains, mais peut-être qu'il serait temps maintenant qu'on apprenne les cultures locales. So Kader, also as an Algerian who grew up between Alger and Paris, having a critical look at the history of French colonization in Algeria, but then going beyond, looking at all the colonizations, history of colonizations around the world, and looking at the contribution of the populations from these colonies during First and Second World War to liberate Europe. So this is like an ongoing project that he calls reparation. And so this act, the literal act of repairing the body, you can see on the back these images of the soldiers who came back with their faces broken from the war, and that people were trying to fix it. That was the beginning of plastic surgery. And in our societies, whether it's from North Africa or south of the of the Sahara, the scarifications, and that is something that you add on your body. So actually you're not hiding the scars, you're showing it. So how do you deal with your own traumas and wounds? In some societies, they fix you and it's erased. In our societies, it's open in the public. Donc lui aussi, en tant qu'Algérien, prend comme point de départ l'histoire de la colonisation et il demande réparation pour toutes les colonies, les anciennes colonies à travers le monde. Et il prend comme réparation littéralement les soldats de la Première Guerre mondiale qui sont revenus avec des gueules cassées. Et c'est là que la chirurgie plastique a démarré. Alors que nous, dans nos sociétés, tout ce qui est scarification et ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on ne cache pas. On le met des livres dedans. Donc, souvent, les sociétés, certaines cachent les plaies et les traumatismes, alors que dans d'autres sociétés, c'est ce qu'on met en avant comme référence identitaire. Sami Baloji, another artist who has also been addressing history. He's from DRC, and he's looking at the south of DRC, which is the region called Katanga, that is very rich in diamond, copper, and that's where all the mine factories were. And this series is called Mémoire Jekamine, Memory of Jekamine. And it's a photomontage where he went in those areas where all these big factories were. They are all in ruins, so you think that it's a war zone. It's just abandoned factories. And taking these images of indigenous, in the bracket, people that were photographed by the Belgian colonies, and putting these two together to address the contemporary decay of DRC as a country. Donc c'est prendre l'histoire du Katanga et de cette région minière avec toutes ces usines qui, après le départ de Mobutu, sont tombées en ruine, les mettre en collage avec les photos comme on prenait les indigènes, et de fait de coller et de plaquer tout ça ensemble, c'est la décadence de la RDC aujourd'hui, de l'histoire d'où tu la regardes, que ce soit d'un point de vue économique, historique, social, culturel, c'est la décadence. Another topic I always look at, and also some artists look at, it's geography. But geography as a physical or mental experience. Because I believe that borders are fake and that people have been traveling for different reasons all around the world. And that we just think that it's a new phenomenon today because we need passports and visas and border controls. But what I know from the history of my continent, from the Middle Ages, is thanks to the Arab travelers. And they were traveling all around. If you look at all the trade routes, so I'm kind of also obsessed by geography. How do you define a border? Where does it stop? And what does traveling mean? Whether it's virtual, physical, mental, and what are the consequences of those travels and this desire to encounter and to meet other people. So Dominique Zingpe from Benin, he did a series of installations called taxis, and looking at public transport in different parts of the world, not just in African countries, because he also did, I think, one in Montreal and one in Marseille. And this was a commission by the National Museum of Mali, and he was looking at how we travel in West Africa. Especially when you, before all these borders, Mali was the heart of the biggest West African empire. That's where the contemporary name of the country comes from. And Mauritania as a country didn't exist, so our immediate neighbor, because my country was part of that empire, our immediate neighbor was Morocco. And in the south of Morocco, there was a sign until I think the 50s that would say, Timbuktu, 50 days, because that was the caravan route. Unfortunately, that sign is no longer there, but that was the road to go to Timbuktu. That was the biggest knowledge temple in that part of the Sahel. And so he took the same road with the caravans, and he filmed and recorded the conversations of people in the minibus, and also filmed the landscape behind, around him. And so he replicated the minivan, and that's really like how we travel in West Africa. It looks crazy, but for us this is the norm. Chaos, that's the norm. And so, and inside the minibus, you could go and sit down and listen to the conversations of people in different languages, because some are speaking Arabic, some are speaking Tuareg, different languages of people who are in the bus, and also watch the landscape, which almost never changes because they're just crossing the desert. And that's also a way for him to question these borders today between Morocco, Mauritania, Mali, Senegal, knowing that before we were just one big empire, and this kind of like Babel Tower inside, where all these different people speaking different languages, but talking to each other in different languages and yet understanding each other. This is a young artist from Zambia, Milumbe Hayimbe, who is doing a series of fiction stories about a character called Ananaya the Revolutionist. And for her, it's an interesting comic book. It's large digital prints, and she's going to do 3 series, and this is the first series, and it's 23 billboards. And it's basically the story, a fiction story of a teenage girl, black teenage girl, who joins the revolution because the world has been taken over by a big conglomerate. And so she's on a space shift, and she is an op agent, and she's supposed to lead a revolution to change the world. Beyond that, what Milumbe is addressing is the fact that when she was growing up, reading all these novels on superheroes, they were all white, male, straight, privileged. Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, etc. And herself as a black woman, lesbian, African, she couldn't identify to any of these heroes, and she wanted to find her own hero. So that was the starting point, and it's also a way to question what is youth mean. Can you be young and be a hero? Can you be young and start a revolution? Can you be a woman and start a revolution? Can you be black and start a revolution? Can you be lesbian and be a leader? So those are all the questions behind. But you just basically just read it as a Batman or Spider-Man story. But the way the character is dressed, her body language, her jargon as well, this young girl, it really touches on popular culture and what's the place of minorities in pop culture today that is informing, let's say, worldwide, the culture of the youth. And so I really see this as a mental journey of how to connect all these different narratives and dreams, and how do you think, if you think that pop culture is a worldwide unifier culture, how do you redefine it or question it with the codes, whether it's virtual codes or cultural codes? Moreja Kitenge, this was a project I commissioned for an exhibition I did a few years ago, where Moreja decided that he, as a Congolese, he was really, really angry with all these NGO, United Nations, and all these international organizations pretending to save and solve the situation in DRC, and it's getting worse. So he decided to question all these international organizations and to start a new one called the Union of States. So he wrote a constitution that he published. He created his own currency that he called the Mori. He created the flag, a national anthem. And so he just reinvented a new world and asking anybody who comes into the exhibition room to agree to this constitution, to be able to see the work and to watch the video and to swear that you are against United Nations and their irrelevance, etc., etc. Ça, c'est l'Union des États, donc où il remet en question toutes les organisations internationales et il propose de créer une nouvelle organisation. Donc il a créé la Constitution, la monnaie, le drapeau. And so at the opening, he made a speech asking all the people around the world to hug each other. And he did it in a kind of United Nations way. It was a way also to mock this kind of jargon and rhetoric that is kind of an empty box. And the last one, so we can finish. Doing It for Daddy, this was also another work I commissioned for an exhibition. It's a collective of 3 South African female artists. And they were invited to Denmark and they were asked to show their culture. And they said, we don't want to do that. We want to have a look at what is Danish culture. And so that closes, it brings the loop, it comes back to tradition. Because what they created this curiosity cabinet. They went in all the tourist spots in Denmark, and they bought all the little junk they could find that artists, tourists buy, the little flags, the little porcelain, and so they put it in this cabinet curiosity, and they interviewed people in the street asking them as Danish to define their culture, and so for them this was like typical, authentic, contemporary Danish art. Of course, the audience was very angry, and so that's how we could have a conversation with them. And then they say, but what do you think of us as South Africans when we go to your ethnographic museums and we see these items and this is supposed to represent us? So now we're just doing the opposite. And they did it in a very scientific way because on each of the object, there was a number, the date, like collected in this area by Dr. Bettina Malcolmes, etc. So really like an ethnographic museum. So this closes and I will stop here. I spoke, I think, even more than 20 minutes. I apologize.
Test. Hello, good morning. Okay. I will talk about through my work, I will talk about how I started working in contemporary art without studying art or having any idea about what does it mean contemporary art, and coming from theater background to video and film. So, and in fact, this girl is the one responsible for me being here today, so you can blame her if you want. Remy Bendale is 2 years older than me. In 1985, she was the star of a film, very famous film called Amani Under a Rainbow, that was presented in Lebanon. It's a Lebanese film. And this film was supposed to be a film against the war. So it was produced in the middle of the civil war that ended in 1990 in Lebanon. And in fact, this film, where she's a young girl, and she's a singer and a dancer, and she do everything in her life. She was a very famous star when she was 5 years old only. But my experience with it, and as my mom tells me, that whenever she wanted to clean the house, she used to put this film for me, and I used to watch it on loop. So she have all the time to clean the house without bothering her. And but in fact, it's a very traumatic film, and this I understood very late, because In this film, Remy Bandali, in the beginning, there is a bomb that attacked her house, and there is a very traumatic scene where we see her parents dying in front of her, and she became an orphan with her brother, so they had to go to an orphanage where they started to do musicals, and she started to sing as she's doing here, and to get money for other orphans of the war. So this was supposed to be a film against the war, but in fact it was very traumatizing for me in my childhood. And the direct effect was that I was jealous of Remy. I wanted to be a star like her, and I wanted, I had this secret wish that I wanted my parents to die during the war, so I become a star. And in fact, for me, the whole civil war was presented for me in the character of Remy and in this wish, especially that I was born in north of Lebanon, and I'm born in '83, so I didn't witness the civil war. In my area, there was it was ended 2 years ago. And so the civil war happening in Beirut was the city that Remy lives in, and the demolished city that I can't see. So it took me till I go to university to start studying. I wanted, in fact, to study cinema. I wanted to be, to do films like Remy or things like it. It was so confused for me. What does it mean to be an actor or a director, all of this? And so it happened for many reasons that I studied theater and didn't study cinema. And after theater study, I co-founded a theater company with some friends. And I worked in theater from 2006 till 2010. And I didn't start working in video till 2011. And my first encounter was wanting to go into this field and working with image and working with working in the contemporary art was in fact just being curious about this world after experiencing or witnessing the work of mainly two people in Lebanon. They are Walid Raad and Akram Zaatari. So for me, this was the work of Walid Raad, Atlas Group, and the videos of Akram Zaatari were for me the contemporary art. And as an anecdote, when I decided a year after to do a program in Ashkal Alwan Association in Beirut, that was a program of contemporary art studies, in the interview I was asked to name artists in the contemporary art field, and I named Akram Zaatari and Walid Raad. And by this time, Emily Jasser, Palestinian artist who was the artist in residency, she was like, "Can you give me another international name?" I was like, "No, I don't know. This is the two people that I know." And so in fact, but I'm just telling you all of this because what happened to me is that when I decided to start working in video, I had the reference of Remy Bandali and Akram and Walid, which was mainly working on archive. So my first instinct was okay, I want to work on archive. And my archive was the word of Remy Bandali. So my first video, Under a Rainbow, which comes from the title of this film, Amani Under a Rainbow, so I just took the Under a Rainbow, was a re-editing of this film in parallel with footage from the 80s on the TV that I used to watch in my village, considering that this is also Beirut and the city where Remy lived and the city that witnessed the war. So in fact, my relation to the war was recreated through the TV and this film, and reshuffling through footage of TV to re-edit my subjective story of someone who didn't live the war like the older generation of contemporary art artists in Lebanon. So I wanted to give this perspective of somebody who of another generation who lived outside of Beirut and don't know what is really the civil war outside what was on the TV. So the next slide, please. So part of my re-editing was like this is part of Under a Rainbow, and this is the text on the screen was the reinterpretation of a song that Remy sang in her film. And in this film, at some point, she says that she wants to go to the sky and to throw flowers on her mother. What do we call here, like hips, something like this, yeah. So, and when I was a kid, I was always like understanding it, like she wants to die, and she wants to throw flowers on her mother tomb. So it was somehow like reinterpreting, representing my point of view of those moments of my childhood. Next, please. The year after, I worked on this project called Objects and Mirror Are Closer Than They Appear, and it was a video installation that I presented last edition here in Video Brazil too. It's a screen in the middle of the room with two video, recto verso. On one screen, there is my subjective representation of the image of Beirut after 10 years living in the city. So it was somehow a continuation of recognizing a city through the TV in Under a Rainbow, and then after living for 10 years in Beirut, the new image that I was trying to reconstruct. So I spent 1 year with my iPhone filming everything that I could find interesting at any point in this year, and from those footages I re-edited a 15-minute video that this is part of it. And Remy was always like, Remy is the young girl here also. So is part of it. And on the other side of the video, on the other side of the screen, there were a road trip movie that I have never mentioned in the description where it is, but in fact it's in Haifa, a city that is far from Beirut, like 3 hours and a half in the car, but that is not accessible because of the state of war that is still exists between Lebanon and Israel, and so we cannot cross the border to go to Haifa. I will not stay a lot on this. I will go for what's next. This is just an example of like, because while refilming my subjective image of the city, I was sometimes also filming old videos that I like over my laptop. So I was having my reflection in the screen too, and I was using it as part of like giving it more this very personal, subjective way of presenting archive instead of dealing with it as a precious archive that tells a common story. I was like a collective story. I wanted to make it very personal in this way. Next. So here we come to Mondial 2010, the video that is here in the exhibition. Mondial 2010. I will talk a bit about the process because, in fact, I don't present the process in the film on purpose. But here, as we're talking about the behind of the work, let's say. This film, it's part also of the idea that we cannot go to Palestine, we cannot visit Palestine as Lebanese. And I've been meeting some people from Palestine, from different cities in Palestine and Jordan for 3 years consecutively during this summer. And I started asking those people to, when they go back home, to take the camera and film their cities as if I am visiting them there. So just without any comments, just take the camera and film where you would take me. And every year I used to meet them back in Jordan, take the footages, come back to Beirut and collect those footages. And by this time I didn't know what to do really with those footages coming from different cities, from Ramallah, Edis, Beit Lahem, Na'alin, and etc. And 2 years ago, I decided that I want to work with the footages coming from Ramallah. And my decision was that to construct a narrative, a fiction, that ended up with the story of this gay couple, Lebanese gay couple, who took their car and decided to go to Ramallah to spend their time in Ramallah in the time of the World Cup 2010, because it's very like, it's very chaotic in Beirut during this time, so they wanted to go to Ramallah. And so mainly it's a film about impossible journey, which is an impossible thing to do, to take a car and go to Ramallah. And it's an impossible also, there's the impossibility to articulate how to say in English? Like a dialogue that's happening between a gay couple in public, because homosexuality is still a crime in Lebanon. So so we spent like those 2 days with this couple in Ramallah, and it was constructed. In fact, like I edited all the video with the way that I wanted to tell my story, and then I worked with 2 actors in Lebanon where we recorded the voice and added it over the image to make it feel as if those people were really in the car going to Ramallah and in the pubs and hotel and etc. And it mainly deals with the idea of one of the couple who have never been to Ramallah, and this dream about like what does this city look like, and at this point his obstacle with the idea that he's witnessing a city that is disappearing and wishing that he never came to never witness such a thing. Next. This is part of Mondial too, and in Mondial I wanted also like to work on the idea of to present an image that is actively talking about Palestine, about Ramallah as a city, where the Israeli, the occupation exists, but in the back of the image and not in the front of the image. Because I was lately having this problem with the production of image that talks about Palestine, but in fact it's much more talking about how the Israeli are occupying the land, how the Israeli are killing, how the Israeli are doing that, and we're not talking about Palestine anymore. So it was a decision to present Ramallah in the foreground and having the occupation, like the settlements or the wall in the background of the image. And in this image we can see more the feeling that I want to have, this mix between a documentary feeling and a fiction mixed in the same work. So yeah, next. And here we come to the last work that I did, and it's showing here also. I'm showing it inside the room, where like the wall on the outside there is Mondial Southern Antenna, and inside there is Spectacle of Privacy, which is a video installation with 3 channels. That I started to work on it a year after Mondial. And in Mondial Southern Antenna, we follow the story of this couple spending 2 days in Ramallah, and we know that they went to an hotel, then to a bar, they spent the night in the bar, and then directly we go to the next morning. So a Spectacle of Privacy, in fact, is the night that we don't see in Mondial 2010. And in Mondial 2010, where we don't see the protagonist at all, we can't see the 2 people. On the contrary, in a Spectacle, we just see those 2 people, and the landscape of the city becomes the landscape of the body of those protagonists. And instead of a subtle language and dialogue that deals with political, social issues between the lines, I decided that in Spectacle, I will go for very blunt discussion that starts with this couple discussing the idea of why are they still using condom. Dealing with the idea of trust, to go from there to an analogy, a funny analogy, in fact, between the condom and the wall, where one of them is telling the other that the wall is also a problem of trust, because for him the Israeli state is built the wall not because they're afraid of Palestinian, but because they're afraid that Israeli and Palestinian get along and start fucking each other and getting kids. This will make a huge problem for where to have those kids in Israel or in Palestine, or to create a new state, or to merge the two states. And for him, this could be a natural solution on the long term. So those two work, you can watch them here in the exhibition. And next. So yeah, he's not afraid of him. He's afraid of the relation to go beyond, as the relation can go beyond between the people of the two states. In fact, I just I talked about this to mention the idea that like my starting point with my work was working with archive, was working with footage. Either it is something that that's from TV or from or a material that I used to film, and I treat it as an archive at some point, or what can we call found footage or requested footage, where I've been asking people to film for me for different purposes, then I use them for something totally else. And this is so this work was developed through those four work that I talked about now. This approach, I mean, sorry. But at the same time, I recently realized that, in fact, also because I'm someone who have not studied art, and in a country where, in fact, art schools are not that good, it's just recently that some private art schools are starting to give a good introduction to contemporary art, like a good study. So, and someone who studied theater, narrative was always something very essential in my work, and especially with the last two work, working with actors, and this make-believe that exists in theater was something very essential also. And the most important element for me was to work on the notion of tension. That is the core of drama, of theater. So like from the Greek tragedy till recent till theater today, tension was always the main element that where the play starts and where we stop the time, and where we are able to go deeper in exploring the meaning of any conflict or any point we wanted to explore. So this tension was the main element that I was using in Mondial 2010 and in Spectacle of Privacy. And it was a very important tool for me to explore those topics, in parallel to trying to add imagination and to politics that I find that we have a big lack of imagination where we're talking about politics. So through creating this, through allowing this impossible travel to happen, and through allowing this discussion in the room, inside a room, an intimate moment of a gay couple, I was trying to explore those topics in my way. I don't know. So yeah, this is mainly. I think it will be easier for me to talk about it with questions maybe later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to pass the word to Abdoulaye. And I'm not sure how we are going to operate the logistics, but I think that Abdoulaye peut parler en français. La traductrice va traduire en anglais Et moi, je vais traduire en portugais pour les gens qui ne parlent pas ni français ni anglais. Sim. Isso. E eu vou traduzir para as pessoas para o português, não é isso? Ok. Allez-y.
Bonjour, ça devient compliqué là.
Bom dia, realmente está se tornando complicado.
Je m'excuse, moi je n'ai pas amené d'image, donc je vais juste essayer de parler, ça va être un peu abstrait. Mais
Eu não trouxe nenhuma imagem, mas eu vou tentar falar, vai ser um pouco abstrato.
Tout d'abord, comme tous les artistes de ma génération, j'ai fait l'école des beaux-arts au Mali.
Então, para começar, como todos os artistas da minha geração, eu fiz a escola de belas-artes no Mali.
Et après, j'ai fait mes études supérieures d'art à Cuba,
Depois eu fiz os estudos superiores de arte em Cuba,
toujours dans le domaine de la peinture.
sempre no campo da pintura.
Je fais ce petit rappel parce que ça montre un tout petit peu toute ma formation, où on a appris toutes les techniques qu'on donne à l'académie.
J'ai pas compris la première partie.
Je fais ce petit rappel
Ah, então, eu falei disso justamente
parce que ça pose tout le problème qu'on a eu de formation.
porque isso mostra todo o problema de formação
Dans ces écoles où nous avons passé,
nessas escolas onde nós passamos.
nous avons remarqué que la formation ne concernait pas notre culture.
A gente percebeu que a formação ela não concerne, não atravessa a nossa cultura.
C'était vraiment toute la formation académique classique occidentale.
Era realmente toda a formação clássica acadêmica ocidental.
C'est comme si notre culture faisait pas partie du global.
É como se a nossa cultura não fizesse parte do global.
Voilà, donc de là, moi, à mon retour de Cuba, j'ai essayé de créer une nouvelle école.
Então, logo que eu voltei de Cuba, eu decidi criar uma nova escola
Avec 3 grands axes principaux.
com 3 eixos principais.
Un, la formation académique qu'on donnait dans toutes les écoles d'art en Europe.
Um eixo era a formação acadêmica, que a gente ensina em todas as escolas de arte na Europa.
Deuxième axe, je voulais faire intervenir ce qu'on appelle entre parenthèses les traditionalistes ou ceux qui détiennent la culture traditionnelle dans nos pays.
O segundo eixo, eu queria tratar da questão do tradicionalismo ou do tradicional na nossa cultura.
Et le troisième axe, c'est toute la nouvelle technologie, comment faire intervenir ça à l'école.
E o terceiro eixo diz respeito às novas tecnologias.
Et je pensais qu'avec ces 3 grands axes, la nouvelle génération, dans cette partie du monde, peut intervenir sur le plan international.
E aí, portanto, eu pensei que, a partir desses 3 eixos, essa nova geração de artistas poderia intervir no plano internacional, global.
Voilà un tout petit peu ma première pensée dans le travail pour les autres.
Então, I'm sorry, it's just so complicated to me to be among this.
Je disais que ça, pour moi, c'est l'apport que j'amenais pour la jeunesse.
Ah, sim, sim.
Parce que nous, on n'a pas eu cette formation.
Sim, então ele falou que isso foi o que ele quis trazer de fato de específico para essa juventude, porque ele não teve isso na formação dele.
Voilà, un peu juste pour planter le décor.
Então isso é só para mostrar para vocês o cenário.
Moi, actuellement, je travaille sur 2 grandes lignes.
E agora eu trabalho sobre 2 linhas importantes.
La première ligne, c'est pour moi tout ce qui concerne ce qu'on aime, donc qui est plutôt esthétique, dans le cadre esthétique.
E a primeira linha, portanto, é tudo aquilo que concerne aquilo que nós gostamos, ou seja, tudo que entra no quadro estético.
Que ce soit en Afrique, en Europe, en Occident, qu'est-ce
Na
qu'on peut
África,
aimer?
na Europa, no Ocidente,
Donc avec des critères différents.
a partir de critérios diferentes.
Et le deuxième axe, c'est toute la souffrance humaine, qu'elle soit en Afrique ou en Occident, quelle que soit la partie.
E o segundo eixo é tudo que diz respeito ao sofrimento humano, também em qualquer lugar, seja na África ou em qualquer outro lugar do mundo.
Donc c'est vraiment les deux grandes lignes de mon travail.
Então essas são as duas grandes linhas do meu trabalho.
Dans ça, j'ai travaillé sur l'immigration, sur le problème Israël-Palestine, qui est un problème de terre, d'espace de terre.
E a partir daí eu trabalhei sobre questões como a imigração, o problema palestino, Israel-Palestina, que é uma questão de terra.
Sur des grandes maladies comme
sobre as grandes doenças como a AIDS.
Et tout dernièrement, j'ai beaucoup travaillé sur le fanatisme religieux.
E também eu trabalhei muito sobre o fanatismo religioso.
Et sur les guerres.
As guerras.
Bon, voilà, juste en un mot sur la souffrance. Qu'est-ce qu'on est en train de faire dans ce monde sans tenir compte de l'autre?
Sim, então tudo isso para dar para vocês o contexto do que eu entendo por sofrimento. O que estamos fazendo nesse mundo sem que nós sem nos darmos conta do outro.
Ma préoccupation n'était pas de faire art ancien, art contemporain ou
eu nunca me preocupei se eu estava fazendo arte antiga, arte contemporânea.
Ma préoccupation c'est comment moi en tant qu'individu social, je souffre et je sens que cette souffrance est partagée.
Então,
comment manifester ça?
A minha preocupação era, sobretudo, enquanto indivíduo, como eu sofro, como o ser humano sofre e como eu posso abordar essas questões.
Voilà un peu en résumé ce que je peux dire sur mon travail.
Então é isso, em resumo, que eu posso falar sobre o meu trabalho.
C'est vraiment très synthétique, bon, mais
é realmente muito sintético.
S'il y a des questions, on peut répondre.
Mas se vocês tiverem questões, eu posso responder.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Abdoulaye. Thank you, all of you. It was a very hard panel because of all this translation and technological problems. But I think that many interesting issues were raised by all of you. Before opening to the questions of the audience, I just wanted to make a brief comment on the things that you said. I prefer to talk in English because they will be able to understand you as well. So instead of translating and making further noise on the discussion. So first of all, Ngon, I think it was very interesting points that you raised, especially when you criticized the idea of tradition. And I think this is something that we have to take into account because tradition, it's a very paradoxical word. So at the same time, it's a problematic word. We know that traditions are invented and they are created and they sometimes kind of take us back to conservative thought and all of that. And thinking in terms of culture is much more open and kind of relevant. Also, we have to acknowledge that the tradition is also still present in our society. You know, at least this idea of communities that are kind of claiming their tradition, entre guillemets, you know, to kind of gain rights to land and stuff like that. The things that the anthropologists, they call ethnogenesis. I think it's a term that they use. So they kind of reinvent the tradition to gain political rights. So anyway, but I think that the critic that you kind of drawn here, it's very important. So I'd like to thank you very much and thank you for all the works that you've shown us. Because although some of these artists were already showed in the festival, other ones we didn't know. So I think it kind of brings us back to the idea of art as a way of dealing with knowledge as well, and how artists, they kind of illuminate, you know, a whole disciplinary field of history and also geography. And Julie, I think I really also appreciated your talk because I think it's a generous act and also important for the audience to understand how the festival was conceived, you know, and how in a very kind of complicated position you had to deal with the diversity of works that were gathered here, you know, without excluding themes that are important, and also how to create connections, with things that seem to be so apart from each other. So I think that the exhibitions, they kind of speak without speaking about the concept that we wanted to raise here in this panel. And Roy, also, I would like to thank you very much for sharing your work with us. And while we were preparing this conversation, through email, Roy said to me, but I don't see, how can I contribute to this talk? Because you are going to kind of discuss tradition, gesture, and my work is about video. But at the same time, what we planned here was to really, to reflect the kind of diversity of practices that are presented in the exhibition space, and run away from essentialized discussions, So, okay, at the same time, Abdoulaye and Roy, they are contemporary from each other, They share the same time, they share the same moment, and they are addressing political issues with different media and different ways of different practices. But at the same time, you are discussing the conflict of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. You both share the same subject. So I think that it kind of reveals us the diversity of the contemporary moment and the practices, and really kind of reminds us to not try to contain it in a framework of predefined concepts. And finally, Abdoulaye, very briefly commenting what you said, I think that it's very important that you also bring you kind of create this bridge between your artistic practice and the work that you develop as a director of a school, and the axis that you bring, you kind of, when you explain your axis, so the idea of dealing with traditional academic formation of artists, so the idea of beaux-arts, fine arts, and also, which is a kind of tradition that we can question as well, and also the idea of bringing or linking, bringing this other axis of local tradition, local culture, local savoir-faire, if we can say. And the final one, the new technologies, so how are we dealing with these technologies of the present? And I think that your work kind of touches upon these issues as well, because, when we look at this panel of tissues that are cut, and, the work with color that he makes, and the contemporary politics that he addresses, I think that these three axes are kind of present in the way he organizes his work. So I think that's it. If you want to make some questions, or if you want to address or to comment on your talks, feel free.
Eu queria perguntar para o senhor Konaté sobre a experiência de feitura desse trabalho. Eu sei que vem de uma prática e de uma estada no Brasil, numa comunidade indígena, aqui em Ubatuba. Então, eu queria que ele contasse um pouco mais sobre essa experiência, essa visita nessa comunidade tradicional, e como ele, a partir disso, produz aquelas tapeçarias qui estão em exibição na mostra.
Ok, merci. Merci bien. C'est vrai que quand j'ai rencontré Solange, où elle m'a proposé de participer au festival, pour moi c'était un grand honneur.
Quando eu encontrei a Solange e ela me convidou para participar do festival, foi uma grande honra.
En même temps, ça m'a fait beaucoup d'inquiétude.
Ao mesmo tempo, eu fiquei muito inquieto.
Parce que nous, on a étudié aussi tout l'art brésilien quand on était étudiant.
Porque a gente também teve a arte brasileira como referência quando nós éramos estudantes.
On sait qu'il y a énormément de grands artistes au Brésil, et la taille du Brésil aussi nous faisait peur aussi.
A gente sabe que tem grandes artistas brasileiros e o tamanho do Brasil dá um certo medo.
Mais quand ils m'ont invité à venir discuter avec eux et puis faire la visite, ça m'a donné beaucoup plus d'idées plus claires pendant mon séjour, où on a eu le temps de faire des visites avec certains de la culture
Então,
afro-brésilienne.
quando eles me convidaram, eu tive a oportunidade de fazer essa visita ao Brasil. Foi muito importante para entrar em contato com esse contexto.
Voilà, et puis j'ai eu la chance aussi de visiter un peu à l'intérieur dans la forêt amazonienne pour rencontrer le groupe Guarani.
E aí eu também tive a oportunidade de visitar a Mata Atlântica, né? A Mata Atlântica para entrar em contato com o grupo Guarani.
Et on a beaucoup discuté avec les responsables qui étaient là-bas sur les problèmes de culture, sur les problèmes de protection de l'environnement, de comment l'actualité est en train de broyer, de démolir certaines cultures qui vont disparaître bientôt. Hein.
E eu discuti muito com uma das responsáveis do local sobre as questões do meio ambiente e destruição do meio ambiente, e como isso é uma questão importante.
Et j'ai visité l'intérieur des cases, leurs cases sacrées où ils font leurs réunions, et j'ai vu beaucoup de ressemblances avec des groupes du Mali.
E eu visitei o interior das casas, é isso? Eu visitei o interior das casas, lugares, espaços sagrados. Eu encontrei muitas semelhanças com o Mali.
Et regardant le système de parure avec les plumages d'oiseaux, j'ai vu une composition, une analyse de rapport de couleurs qu'aucun universitaire au niveau de l'académie peut dire que c'est pas vrai, quoi.
E vendo os adereços, enfim, a plumária, eu pude entrar em contato com uma composição de cores que nenhum acadêmico poderia negar que se trata de arte.
Les relations de couleurs, la composition,
a relação
la
das
finition,
cores, a composição.
Que j'ai trouvé beaucoup de ressemblances avec certains peuples de chez nous. Donc j'ai décidé depuis lors de commencer. J'ai commencé à faire des esquisses déjà quand je suis retourné à l'hôtel. E lá c'est parti, quoi.
Eu encontrei muita semelhança nessa composição de cores com coisas que são feitas no meu lugar de origem. E logo que eu voltei pro hotel, eu comecei já a fazer desenhos e esboços.
Déjà, avant de quitter le Brésil, j'avais une idée claire de ce que je pouvais faire.
Então, já antes de deixar o Brasil, eu tinha uma ideia muito clara do que eu queria fazer.
Donc, tout le reste des petits symboles qui sont là sont les informations, les images que nous recevons du Brésil, que j'ai essayé de monter petit à petit.
E todo o resto, as pequenas referências, são imagens que nós recebemos do Brasil desde longe e que eu tentei agregar à obra.
Voilà, et puis j'avais promis que j'allais faire vraiment une grande taille par rapport à mon travail, mais aussi par rapport au Brésil.
Então, de toda maneira, eu tinha dito que eu iria fazer um trabalho de grandes proporções, também remetendo ao tamanho do Brasil.
Ça c'est un premier travail que j'ai amené ici, mais de ma visite, il est sorti d'autres séries que je n'ai pas présentées à Vidéo Brasil, mais que j'avais déjà commencé à présenter à Berlin. Et je suis encore en train de travailler sur la série après ma visite au Brésil.
Então, como resultado dessa experiência, esse trabalho que eu trouxe é apenas de alguns outros que eu acabei produzindo e que já foram, inclusive, mostrados em outros lugares, como em Berlim, né? Dessa mesma série.
Voilà, en un mot, je suis vraiment très, très heureux, très fier de cette visite et de cette collaboration avec Vidéo Brasil.
E eu estou muito feliz e muito orgulhoso dessa visita e dessa colaboração com o Vídeo Brasil.
Et je sais qu'il y a beaucoup de possibilités d'échange sur le plan culturel entre toute cette partie de l'Afrique et le Brésil.
E eu sei que existem muitas possibilidades de intercâmbio entre o Brasil e essa região da África e o Mali, né?
Voilà ce que je peux dire. Merci.
Do any of you want to make comments, raise more questions? No? Do you? Alguém quer colocar uma questão para os participantes? Bom, acho que então é isso. Eu vou encerrar a mesa. E muito obrigada pela participação de vocês. Thank you very much for being here with us today. O Alcimar quer dar um recado.
Bom dia. Eu queria só, enfim, agradecer a presença de vocês todos e a participação nesse primeiro encontro. Agradecer o empenho da Maria e da Sabrina para ajudar um pouco a resolver esse problema que a gente teve de ordem da tradução, esses inconvenientes, e deixar claro aqui, me desculpar em nome do SESC, deixar claro para todos que participaram hoje que a gente tem um próximo encontro no sábado, com a segunda mesa do seminário, e de que esses inconvenientes de tradução vão estar todos resolvidos, então a gente conta com todos vocês aqui. Enfim, queria deixar registrado aqui para os convidados e para todos vocês que vieram participar as nossas desculpas aqui por conta desses inconvenientes.